Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're shifting gears a little bit. We aren't looking at a tech startup or some geopolitical crisis. We're actually setting the dial on the time machine to a very specific, very atmospheric moment in the past.
Oh, I love this one.
Right. We're going to a crisp autumn evening in 1966.
It is honestly the perfect time of year for this. It's October, the leaves are turning in upstate New York. There is that chill in the air. It's the time of year when the veil just feels a little thin.
Exactly. A little spooky season vibe.
Mm-hmm.
So we are in Elmira, New York, inside an apartment. A woman named Jane Roberts and her husband, Robert Butts, are sitting down. And they are about to have a conversation that, quite frankly, rewrites the rules of how human energy works.
It really does. And just to set the record straight for everyone, we are looking at session 293 of the early sessions, book 7 of the Seth Material. The specific date of record is Wednesday, October 12th, 1966.
Right. And for you listening, if you are new to this specific area of study, we aren't just reading a diary entry here. This is a session where Jane Roberts is channeling the personality essence known as Seth.
Uh-huh.
And before we get into the spookiness, and trust me, there is some distinct spookiness in this one involving a literally one-day-old baby,
Yeah.
we have to get the standard housekeeping out of the way.
Yes, very important. A quick reminder to everyone listening that this deep dive is distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes.
And while we are here to guide you through this fascinating landscape, the real magic happens when you engage with the source directly. We are summarizing and analyzing, but you need to read the primary text. We highly encourage you to study the Seth Material books yourself.
Absolutely. You can find them, along with just a massive treasure trove of other resources, by visiting the New Awareness Network website and bookstore. That's at sethcenter.com/the-early-sessions.
Please do that. Support the publisher's New Awareness Network. They are doing the heavy lifting of keeping this incredible material in print so we can even have these conversations.
Yeah, they do great work.
Okay, housekeeping done. Let's get into the room. October 12th, 1966. The vibe of this session is, well, it's deceptively domestic, isn't it? It starts with mundane complaints about work and sore muscles.
It does. It starts with a substitute teaching gig and physical cramps. But by the end of the hour, we are dealing with accurate psychic predictions about a newborn infant that, frankly, send a shiver down my spine.
We are definitely going to get to the baby and the professor of dirt.
Oh my gosh, yes. The professor of dirt.
I cannot wait to unpack that.
Yeah.
But the core of this deep dive, the thing I think is going to change how you, the listener, view your own daily life, is this concept of the energy knot.
It is a complete reversal of how we typically understand exhaustion.
Right. Because the central irony here is that we usually think, oh, I'm tired, I'm hurting, I've been working too hard, I need to rest. And Seth comes through in the session and basically says, no, you are hurting because you are resting too much.
Or rather, you are hurting because you are suppressing a massive amount of energy that actually needs to be used.
Yeah.
In this specific context, relaxing is actually physically damaging the body.
Which is just a wild concept. It suggests that burnout might not always be about an empty tank. Sometimes burnout is about a tank that is so full, it is about to burst, and we have corked it shut.
Exactly. It is the fundamental difference between depletion and stagnation. And distinguishing between those two is really the key to what we are discussing today.
So let's set the scene to understand where this insight comes from. Jane Roberts, and Seth refers to her as Ruburt in the sessions, has just started a new job.
Correct. This is October 1966. Jane is a writer. She is a psychic. She is doing these profound Seth sessions, but she also needs to pay the bills and engage with the community. So she takes on a job as a substitute teacher. She started on Tuesday, October 11th, just the day before this session was recorded.
Now, I don't know about you, but the idea of being a substitute teacher terrifies me. It is a very specific kind of nightmare. You're walking into a room full of kids who don't know you, who probably don't want to learn, and you have to command that room instantly.
It is a high-stress environment for sure. And Jane, being naturally sensitive and introverted in some ways, fully expected to be drained. She went in expecting nervousness. She expected that classic first day of school anxiety where your stomach is just tied in knots.
But that is not what happened.
Not at all. In the session, Seth opens up by commenting on this immediately. He analyzes her performance. He says the concentration that he used in teaching should tell him something. He literally brought a tremendous amount of energy to bear. Automatically, he drew upon this energy and focused it for his own purposes.
Tremendous amount of energy. So she walks in there, and instead of shrinking back, she just She just turns it on.
She forgot everything else. She forgot her nerves. She forgot her self-consciousness. She completely projected herself out to those students. And Seth points out something critical here. He says this energy she used for teaching, it isn't specifically teaching energy. It isn't a unique fuel for a specific task.
Right. There is no separate gas tank in your body for teaching, and another one for writing, and another for psychic stuff.
Exactly. Seth says this same kind of energy can be utilized most handily in projections of another sort. The same amount of energy focused in an out-of-body experience would have resulted in some venture indeed. It is the same kind of energy he utilizes in his poetry.
I love this concept. It is like electricity in a home. The electricity in your wall doesn't care if it is powering a toaster or a television or a table saw. It is just current. It is raw potential. And Seth is saying Jane tapped into this high voltage current to manage a classroom of kids.
And because she did that, because she demanded that energy be available, the result was incredibly potent. Seth notes that Jane's image was imprinted most strongly in the minds of every child in that class.
That is such a funny image to me. You have the substitute teacher come in, and usually you forget them by lunchtime. They're just a placeholder. But Jane comes in radiating this high-frequency psychic energy, basically vibrating with power. Those kids probably went home and were like, "Mom, the new teacher stared directly into my soul today."
It is very likely. Seth actually says Rupert's image is indeed imprinted most strongly in the mind of every child in his classes yesterday. Used in a projection, the same intensity of energy would allow results that could be proven without doubt.
So the takeaway here for you listening is about availability. Jane didn't have to store up energy for weeks to do this. She didn't have to somehow save her strength. She just asked for it.
She demanded it. That is the word Seth uses repeatedly. He says all he has to do is demand that the energy is available, and it shall be. It suggests that our energy levels aren't a fixed battery that drains down throughout the day. It is more like a tap connected to an infinite reservoir. The more you open the tap, the more flows through.
This challenges the spoon theory a little bit, doesn't it? The idea that you only have so many spoons of energy per day. Seth seems to be arguing that the spoons are infinite, provided you are aligned with the flow.
I think that is the nuance. If you are doing something you hate or something that fights your basic nature, the friction drains you. But if you are projecting your consciousness outward, fully engaged, whether that is teaching, writing, or painting, the flow replenishes itself. Jane wasn't tired during the teaching. She was energized.
And here is the massive but. There's a downside if you open the tap and then try to put your thumb over the nozzle.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this brings us to the central conflict of the session, the energy knot.
Okay, let's unpack this because this is where the physical symptoms actually come in. Jane isn't just teaching and feeling great. She is coming home and she is in physical pain.
Right. She had been suffering from sore muscles, cramps, and spasms, specifically in her deltoids, her shoulders and upper arms.
Now, conventional wisdom says, Jane, you are overdoing it. You are writing books. You are doing psychic sessions. Now you are teaching high schoolers. Your shoulders hurt because you are tense and overworked. Go lie down. Take a hot bath. Do nothing.
That is exactly what we would tell a friend. Take a break. You're burning the candle at both ends. But Seth's diagnosis is the complete opposite. He says these symptoms are not from overwork, but from underutilization of energy.
I want to read a quote here because it is just so counterintuitive. Seth says, the unused energy ties him up in knots. When he is working at full power, he is quite beyond such physical symptoms.
Ties him up in knots. Think about that water hose analogy again. If you have a fire hose connected to a hydrant and you turn the hydrant on full blast, but you kink the hose or shut the nozzle, what happens to the hose?
It gets rock hard. It vibrates. It is under immense pressure.
Yeah.
It creates a bulge at the blockage point. It might even burst.
That is Jane's body. Seth explains that Jane is a converter of high psychic energy. That is her nature. Her system is designed to take raw energy and convert it into creativity. Poetry, books, teaching, psychic work. When she is doing that, the flow is smooth, the hose is open, the water rushes out, and the hose itself is flexible.
But when she stops?
When she stops or when she hesitates, the pressure builds up. The energy is still coming from the source because she demanded it for the teaching. But now she is home, sitting on the couch, trying to rest, and that massive current hits a wall.
So the rest, for her, isn't lying on the couch doing nothing.
No. Seth explicitly says rest is in the work. For her specific personality type, high activity is the resting state for her system because it allows the flow to move through her without resistance.
That is mind-blowing. Rest is in the work. I feel like there are people listening right now who are emphatically nodding their heads. You know those people who go on vacation to a beach resort? They're supposed to be relaxing, and within 2 days they have a migraine or a severe backache?
Yes, because they have stopped the flow. Seth says when he demands less of himself, the physical system, geared for steady, highly focused action, becomes confused. The glandular system's upset, and the nervous system as well.
It creates a blockage,
Mhm.
and the blockage manifests as pain. It is almost like the energy becomes toxic if it isn't expressed.
And then we get the psychological component that makes it even worse. Seth describes a vicious circle.
Oh, I know the circle well. Walk us through it.
Okay. Step 1, Jane feels the pain in her shoulders. Step 2, she broods about it. She worries. She thinks, I'm not well or I'm doing something wrong. Step 3, because she is brooding and in pain, she stops working. She doesn't write. She doesn't do the poetry. Step 4, the lack of work increases the blockage, which heavily increases the pain.
It is a complete downward spiral. She thinks, I hurt, so I cannot write. Seth says, you hurt because you aren't writing.
Exactly. He tells her the solution is immediate. When she gets home from teaching, she shouldn't collapse on the sofa. She needs to channel that teaching energy, which is still running incredibly high into her 2 books and her poetry.
He says, this will effectively relieve him of all physical symptoms.
It is a prescription for creative intensity as a cure for physical pain. He is essentially telling her, don't treat the shoulder. Treat the flow.
It really makes you rethink the entire concept of burnout. As we said earlier, maybe some burnout is real depletion, but maybe a lot of what we call burnout is actually rust out. It is the energy stagnating because we aren't directing it into something we care about.
I think that is a very crucial distinction. But we have to be careful here because Seth later differentiates Jane's energy system from her husband Rob's. And this is really helpful for our listeners because not everyone is a Jane.
Right. We don't want to tell everyone to just work harder until they literally drop. That is dangerous advice for the wrong physiology. Let's get into that. Section 3, 2 types of batteries. Or maybe 2 types of generators is a better way to look at it.
Generators works perfectly. Seth draws a sharp contrast between Jane and Rob.
So Jane is the race car. We have established that.
Essentially, she is high-intensity, immediate conversion. She needs to demand energy constantly. If you drive a Formula One car at 10 miles per hour through a school zone, the engine overheats. It is not built for that. It needs to go fast to function. Her resting state is motion.
And Rob?
Rob works on what Seth calls an alternating current.
Which sounds a bit more rhythmic.
It is. Seth tells Rob, your own system, Joseph, handles this energy in an entirely different fashion. There is with you a certain feedback that works to your advantage, a certain withholding of energy that is then released.
Withholding of energy. That sounds like the direct opposite of what Jane should do. If Jane withholds, she gets cramps.
Exactly. But for Rob, the process involves a maturation of images. He takes the energy in, he holds it, lets it gestate, lets the ideas mature, and then releases it.
So he is not a sprayer. He is a fermenter.
Yes, a fermenter of energy. He has a slower pace, but it is steady. It is cyclical. He charges up, processes discharges, and then needs to charge again.
However, Seth notes that Rob also has high energy periods. It is not that he is low energy, it is just that it manifests completely differently.
Right. When Rob is in a high-energy phase, it often shows up in his dreams. Seth says, clairvoyant dreams and dreams of intuitive natures will occur in high-level periods. Your influence over others will be heightened.
That is so interesting. So Jane projects her energy outward immediately into the classroom or the typewriter. Rob processes his internally, resulting in vivid dreams and a quiet but powerful influence.
And Seth warns Rob, when your slower period lengthens beyond a certain point, then with you there's difficulty. So even the alternator can get stuck if he holds on too long. But generally, he needs that pause. Jane does not.
I think this is such a valuable framework for self-analysis. For you to ask yourself, am I a sprinter who needs to burn fuel to feel good? Do I feel better when I am juggling 3 projects and writing a novel at night? Or am I an alternator? Do I need to sit with an idea for a week, let it marinate, and then execute?
And realizing that neither is better. They are just different physiological and psychological structures. If Jane tries to act like Rob, taking long pauses to reflect, she gets cramps. If Rob tries to act like Jane, running hot 24/7, he might burn out or produce immature work because the ideas simply haven't marinated.
It is the ultimate permission slip to be yourself. Stop trying to adopt someone else's workflow if it physically hurts you.
Precisely. There is a specific tip Seth gives Rob about his ideal performance that I find fascinating. He talks about Rob's dream work.
Yes. Success with his dream work depends precisely upon this excess energy still available at day's end.
This is a key biohack for the Rob types. If Rob drains himself completely during the day with physical labor or stress, he has absolutely nothing left for his night shift, the dream work.
So Jane needs to burn it all up to feel good. Rob needs to leave a little in the tank so he can use it while he sleeps.
It is a delicate balance for Rob. Seth says, yet using more energy, he will have more left. It is paradoxical. By using energy during the day, he generates momentum, but he shouldn't run until he collapses.
It really highlights how individualistic energy management actually is. There is no one-size-fits-all productivity hack.
No. And looking at their social life, Seth mentions their friends, the Gallaghers, leaving for vacation. He says, "We will be delighted to keep track of your friends when they are gone."
That is the omnipresent voyeurism of Seth again. I will just watch your friends while they are where were they going? Florida.
It doesn't say, but probably somewhere warm. But it implies that Seth isn't bound by the room. He can tune in to anyone, anywhere.
Which brings us perfectly to the next segment. If energy can be projected, and if entities like Seth can tune in, what happens when you try to invite that energy into your living room table?
Oh, here we go.
We have to dim the lights a little bit now. We've covered the cramps. Now we get to the spooky stuff. This session takes a turn into the specific, the paranormal, and the prophetic. And it starts with tables.
Table tipping.
For the younger listeners, or those who haven't spent their Friday nights trying to conjure spirits, can you explain what table tipping actually is?
Sure. It was a popular form of mediumship or seance activity, especially in the spiritualist movement of the 19th and early 20th centuries, but clearly still happening in the 60s. A group of people sit around a table, place their fingertips lightly on the surface, and wait. The idea is that spirits can manipulate the energy of the sitters to make the table tilt, knock, or even lift off the floor to answer questions. 1 knock for yes, 2 for no.
And Rob and Jane had tried this a few days prior, on October 7th, with some friends.
It did. And here is the funny part. They actually started out by faking it.
Of course they did.
Rob and his friend Bill were pranking their wives. They were pushing the table. They were guiding it. But, and this is the deep dive twist, it started working for real.
Seth confirms this.
He does. He says, incidentally, the grandfather of your friend was legitimately connected with your lighthearted experiment the other evening.
So they're faking it, laughing about it, but in the middle of the joke, an actual spirit, Don Wilbur's grandfather, steps in and says, "I will take it from here."
And the key lesson Seth draws from this is entirely about belief. He says the whole affair would never have worked unless the belief was there, as you saw for yourself.
Even though the men were faking, the women, and maybe deep down the men too, had an expectation, a belief that it could happen, and that belief created the bridge.
It validates the idea that playfulness doesn't negate psychic phenomena. Sometimes being lighthearted and playful opens the door better than being deadly serious and rigid. Being serious can create tension, which blocks the energy. Being playful relaxes the guard.
Seth even encourages them to test it further. He says, you might ask the table for evidence some evening, and if there's a strong communicator, you might get something of interest.
Seth is very scientific in that way. He calls the sessions our experimental data. He wants Rob and Jane to be critical observers, not just passive vessels. He is telling them, don't take my word for it. Get the table. Ask for proof.
Okay, table tipping is fun. Grandfathers are nice. But then Seth pivots. And he pivots to a topic that Jane and Rob hadn't even asked about in this session.
This is the part that genuinely gave me pause when I was reviewing the source material. Seth brings up your niece's child.
This is Linda's baby, Eileen Elizabeth. She was literally 1 day old. Jane and Rob had just seen her at the hospital.
A newborn. A blank slate, supposedly. And yet, Seth proceeds to lay out a biography for this child that is shocking in its specificity.
It is not the usual fortune cookie stuff like she will be happy or she will travel. This is uncomfortably detailed.
Extremely.
Let's list these out for you listening because the bullet points of this prediction are wild. What is the first one?
First, at age 3, there will be an accident around an oven. But he clarifies no serious after effects.
Okay, oddly specific. Watch the oven. What is next?
Then, at age 8, a minor operation, perhaps tonsils or appendix.
Again, a very specific time frame.
Then, at age 13, an unfortunate circumstance involving an automobile. But he assures them she will recover from it.
Imagine being the parents and hearing this. Age 13, car accident. That is terrifying. But also, Seth is saying it is part of the path.
He continues. He sees her family life. He says he will have 2 boys. He sees a divorce or separation, followed by a reunion or coming back together.
A turbulent love life, but a happy ending.
He talks about her career, a tendency toward design and painting. He mentions she will be 5'5", have brownish hair, and love the color red.
The color red. He is predicting the favorite color of a one-day-old infant. That feels almost intrusive, but also incredible.
And he gives a mysterious clue. He says the initials SAG will be important to her later. Possibly a husband.
SAG. Maybe the Screen Actors Guild. Maybe she becomes an actress.
Could be. Or brand. Or a place. San Angelo, Georgia.
If anyone listening knows an Eileen Elizabeth born in October 1966 who married a SAG or joined the Screen Actors Guild, let us know.
But the most bizarre specific prediction, the one that feels like a glitch in the Matrix, is about the next generation.
Oh, this one really got me.
Seth predicts that this baby's future son, so we're talking about a person who will not be born for another 20 or 30 years, will be a professor.
A professor of what?
A professor in a subject dealing with dirt or earth, like geology or agronomy.
A professor of dirt. That is just... why? Why mention that?
I think that is the point. The analyst in me looks at this and asks, why does the universe, or the consciousness that is Seth, care about a professor of dirt 2 generations down the line?
It implies a level of planning, or at least a level of visibility, that is staggering. It suggests that the script is written, or at least outlined, way further in advance than we think.
Or that the probabilities are so strong that they can be read clearly from day one. It challenges our entire concept of time. If Seth can see the career of the unborn son of a one-day-old baby, then time is not linear in the way we experience it. The future is already existing alongside the present.
That is a contradiction, though, isn't it?
Sure.
Because Seth is famous for saying you create your own reality and that the future is probable, not fixed.
Oh.
But here, with the baby, he seems to be reading a very fixed script. Accident at 13, Professor's son.
It is a tension in the material for sure. I think it speaks to the idea of root assumptions or the basic setup of a life. Maybe the soul of that child, Eileen, chose these events as markers before she was born. I need to learn about danger at age 3 with the oven. I need to learn about resilience at age 13 with the car. They aren't punishments. They are curriculum.
Curriculum, I like that word. So the Professor of Dirt's son, maybe that is the payoff. She goes through the divorce, she goes through the accidents, but she raises a child who connects deeply with the earth.
And remember, this is 1966. Ecology wasn't exactly a mainstream buzzword yet. The EPA didn't even exist. Predicting a career in dirt or earth was actually a bit unusual for a prestigious academic career prediction. Usually you would predict a doctor or a lawyer.
That is true. A professor of agronomy wasn't exactly the standard American dream then. It is a very specific, grounded prediction. It makes you wonder if that son is out there right now teaching at a university totally unaware that a disembodied entity predicted his tenure in 1966.
If he is, I really hope he finds this recording.
It is also a little comforting in a weird way.
How so?
Well, it means we aren't just drifting in chaos. If there's a plan for Eileen Elizabeth to be 5'5" and love red and have a geologist son, maybe there is a plan for me too. Maybe my chaotic Tuesday is just leading to my own SAG moment.
That is a beautiful way to look at it. It suggests meaning. Even in the accidents, the surgeries, the divorces, it is all part of a recognizable pattern.
And it connects back to the energy knot.
It does.
Well, if the universe is this detailed, this specific, then the energy we have, this unique energy Jane has, or Rob has, it is given to us for a reason, right? It is not accidental.
Absolutely. Jane is built as a high-energy converter because she has a specific role to play, writing the books, teaching the students, channeling Seth. If she fights that nature, she suffers. If she accepts it, she thrives. The baby has a nature too. We all do.
So the lesson is, stop fighting your blueprint.
There's another detail in the text we grazed over regarding Jane's symptoms that ties this blueprint idea together perfectly. Seth mentions her feet.
Yes, the foot symptom.
Seth mentions the foot symptom is also connected here. But as it began to improve, you see the arm symptom developed.
This is the classic game of symptom whack-a-mole.
Oh, whack-a-mole, yes.
You treat one thing and another thing immediately pops up.
Seth is pointing out that because the root cause wasn't addressed, the blockage of creative energy, the symptom just moved. She fixed her foot, maybe by resting it or changing shoes, so the energy blockage migrated right up to her shoulders, to the deltoids.
It is like water in a leaking ship. You plug one hole, The pressure builds, and it bursts through another weak spot.
Which reinforces the main point. You cannot treat the symptom in isolation. He actually tells Jane to stay away from the chiropractor for a while.
Right. He says he should stay away from your friend Piper, the chiropractor, for a while at least.
That is bold advice. Don't go to the doctor, go to the typewriter.
But the logic holds completely within Seth's framework. If the pain is psychosomatic, and by that I don't mean fake, I mean caused by the psyche, then a physical manipulation of the spine is only treating the effect, not the cause.
And if she gets relief from the chiropractor, she might think she is cured, and then she won't do the necessary work of releasing the energy. The pain is a messenger. It is saying, Jane, write the book. If you silence the messenger with a back adjustment, you completely miss the message.
That is actually profound. The pain is not the enemy. The pain is the dashboard light blinking check engine.
And the engine in this case is her creative drive.
You know, Seth also mentioned something about maturity regarding Jane's teaching.
Yes. He says, Ruburt handled himself well in a new situation, and that maturity gained these past 2 years was instantly felt.
This is important because Jane often doubted herself. She was a writer living in a small town, dealing with this weird psychic phenomenon. She probably felt like an outsider or a weirdo half the time.
Definitely. And standing in front of a class requires real authority. Seth is validating her growth. He is saying, you are stronger than you think. You have grown more than you realize.
It is a nice little ego boost from her spectral mentor. Good job, Ruburt. You crushed it.
And notice the financial comment at the end.
The I take no fee.
Yes. Seth says, this evening session has already intuitively made great sense to him and will save him several months of difficulties. And I take no fee.
He's got jokes.
He does. But he is also right. Think about how much money people spend on doctors, therapists, and pain specialists. Seth just gave her a diagnosis and a cure in 30 minutes.
Write more poetry. Total cost, $0.
Well, the cost is the effort, the cost is the demand.
True. But let's look at the pseudosensual comment regarding Rob. We touched on his dreams, but there's a technical phrase there we should explain for you.
Yes, pseudosensual impressions.
Seth says, regarding Rob's dreams, the pseudosensual impressions will appear more concrete. What exactly does that mean?
Pseudo here means quasi or simulated, but not false. Seth teaches that when we dream, we use inner senses. We don't have physical eyes in a dream, yet we see. We don't have physical hands, yet we touch and feel texture.
Right.
Seth is saying that when Rob's energy is high, when he has that excess energy at the end of the day, these inner senses become supercharged. They become as vivid and concrete as physical life.
It entirely blurs the line between the dream world and the waking world.
Exactly. If your dream feels as real as your breakfast, which one is reality?
Don't do this to me. I am still recovering from the professor of dirt.
It is the ultimate question of the Seth material. You create your own reality.
Let's circle back to the practical advice for you listening as we wind down. We have talked about the energy knot. We have talked about the 2 types of batteries. We have talked about the baby. What is the big takeaway for someone listening to this deep dive on their commute right now?
I think the takeaway is to fundamentally reevaluate your relationship with effort. We are taught that effort depletes us. But session 293 suggests that for many of us, aligned effort doing the thing we are actually good at and passionate about is the source of our energy, not the drain.
If you are feeling stuck, if you're feeling physically cramped or lethargic, the answer might not be a nap. The answer might be to pick up the pen or the paintbrush or whatever your tool is.
Ask yourself, am I tired because I did too much? Or am I tired because I am holding back a massive amount of potential energy?
That is the question. What am I holding back?
And remember Seth's promise to Jane. When he is working well, his rest is in his work.
Rest is in the work. I am going to put that on a sticky note.
It is an incredibly powerful mantra.
And hey, if you try it and you accidentally predict the future of your neighbor's baby, don't blame us.
Blame Seth.
Blame Seth. Speaking of which, we really want to remind you to go to the source. This conversation is just the tip of the iceberg.
It really is. We summarize, but reading the actual dialogue between Jane, Rob, and Seth gives you a texture we simply cannot replicate.
So go to sethcenter.com/the-early-sessions. Buy the books from No Awareness Network. Read session 293 in its entirety.
Yeah.
There is so much nuance we couldn't even get to today.
The nuances of the grandfather spirit alone are worth the read.
Truly. Yeah. It has been a pleasure diving into this with you all. We hope you walk away from this feeling a little more electrified, a little less knotted up, and maybe just a tiny bit spooked by the precision of the universe.
It is a wonderful place to be.
I will leave you with this final thought. We talked about Jane demanding the energy. We talked about the baby having a destiny written in the stars. Here is the provocative thought for the drive home. If your exhaustion isn't because you did too much, but because you are holding back a massive amount of potential energy, what happens if you just let it go? What happens if you take your thumb off the hose?
You might just wash away the obstacles.
Or you might water a garden you didn't even know you had.
Ah,
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We will see you next time.
goodbye, everyone.